Olive, perhaps my colleague here, and I'm glad he went to the University of Nairobi, at the same campus that I went to study law. And we have to look at facts as they are. And it was not a matter of right or wrong in regard to the commissioners during the election. And it was purely a matter of announcing the results as they were. And Olive, I sit in the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, whose matters I really can't discuss in detail, but I can make fair commentary on it. And I was alive to the petitions that were presented against the commissioners. And when you look at the facts and the chronology of events, and I believe Wakili here knows that in law we deal with evidence. And at the end of the day, we cannot say that Chebukati, because of deciding to announce the results as they were, went against the other commissioners. That is the work that they were all supposed to be doing. Just because of our competing interests, and some people felt that perhaps the results were not supposed to be announced as they were, does not mean that he was wrong. And at the end of the day, we can never have total independence of any institution. That is delusional. All these institutions work together. It's like a jigsaw, right? Every piece of a puzzle has to fit. Because at the end of the day, the government, who perhaps is the executive, funds these institutions. And like he has said, we cannot sit here and lie to the public that perhaps maybe the opposition or the government as is will not have any interest in the selection panel. This is about the democracy of our nation. It's about the future of our nation. Of course, a well-intentioned president would want to ensure that there is a team that will secure the future of this nation. So at the end of the day, Olive, we need to be realists when we look at these things, but not just sit on the sidelines and think, oh, even the opposition will not be pushing for perhaps free and fair elections in 2027. And Olive, like my colleague said, elections begin and end at the tallying station, the polling station, sorry. I remember when I was vying during the nominations, you know, I was just a newbie, it was my first time. So my agents disappeared from the polling stations to celebrate, because I think we had around 30% announcements, and I was just raking in the numbers. And Olive, it just went blank, and now I was losing. And you know, elections is about, because it wasn't really hotly contested per se, it's about a pattern. So the pattern was that I was leading and now I was losing. My agents are nowhere to be seen. We go to the main polling center, and we find that maybe in the constituency, they're not signed, you know, the forms are not signed. So I cannot even authenticate whether those are the numbers that I got at a certain polling station. And we know that the opposition, they have even admitted that they failed to field agents at various polling centers. So we cannot keep on having this blame game and saying that it is the IEBC all the time. We have had the IEBC Act amended a record, I think 5 times, you know, within a short period from 2011, 2016, 2019, 2020. We've now done another amendment. And at the end of the day, we can't keep saying it's the system, it's the system. Then it must be us, because we're the people who are running the system. We're the people who are making these laws. We're the people who are running the policy changes. Like Wakili here, he's an advocate. He has a right to go to court. We had a petition, I think petition number E364 of 2020. And the last amendments that were done to balance the selection panel were actually emanating from the courts. They were not, it is not even Parliament or this government that pushed for those amendments. And it was an issue of a balance of separation of powers, because they felt that in the previous, the law as it was, that it gave the Parliamentary Service Commission more power, because it gave us, I think, 4 selection slots, in regard to perhaps distributing the power at the end of the day. Like we've said, interest will always be there. This is politics. It can never be devoid of interest.
All right.
But what is that interest being channeled to? Is it in the right direction? Do the people who are behind the scenes have the right intention for this nation?
All right. Peter, Mwalimu.
Yes.
some of what was said yesterday by Chebukati and his team is that IEBC always ends up taking the blame, but they say the problem is the competitive nature of Kenyan politics and the ethnic nature of Kenyan politics. And Waiguru, the governor, who is now the chief of COG chair, talked about how come people don't have problems with these other 5. They always have a problem with this one. And part of what Chebukati also said is that the commission has been set up to fail by legislators. In fact, with regard to, first of all, amendments to the election laws being late, and then he also talked about not having funding throughout because I remember the EU commissioner was talking about this is the first commission that has served the full 6 years under the new constitutional dispensation. So did they have a case? Walikuwa na machungu wakiongea, because I remember Gulie talking about, first there was what was it? He talked about clean slate under BBI, and before that I can't remember what it was called. And he said it's always under the 6 year for the 6 years. Actually, it was Molu and Gulie who said there's always been the threat of removal from office hanging on their head. So do you agree? Is the problem the commission, or is the problem the competitive nature and ethnic nature of our politics?
Just as you say, I think both commission and the competitiveness of nature of our politics in this country. But I just want to say something about what my colleague has said. When we came here, we did come as opposition or the leader. What we are saying is that the work of the commission is to give transparent and verifiable election, whether we have agents or no agents. It is the duty of the commission to ensure that the elections are free and fair. So what I can say is that the selection is a political process because they are involved in politics. If you do not have a thick skin, then please don't apply to be a commissioner, because it is a political process. For those who do not know, maybe I jog their minds back. In 2002, we did not have a problem because there was a landslide victory. The Kenyans were tired about the tyranny of the previous regime. When we came to 2007, when the competition was so close, if I jog my mind, it was even worse than last year. If you remember, if you were there really,
yes,
you remember that the president was sworn in at night in State House.
Yes.
And not only that, when we were at KICC, because I was there, when we were at KICC at night, the lights went off. The security apparatus, the GSU filled the KICC. And it was terrible. So what I also want to say is that even a commission of inquiry about the past election might really not help this country. Because even all those years, we have had very competitive elections.
So what will help this country?
What will help this country is that we have, of course, now we can see that we have a mature democracy. One of my colleagues just said that this time we did not have any fights after the election. I think that's a big step for this country, that we are maturing and we are really depending on the announcement of the IEBC. We need to have a process. Of course, it will not be devoid of political inclination, but we need to have a process that is really transparent. We need to have all those with political interests put their interests aside, and let us get people of high integrity, people who will deliver us from this bondage of really, not really just political competitiveness, but expectations of Kenyans must be met by a simple process that is put by the IEBC. We must educate our people about elections. The IEBC this time never educated our people about elections. That is why we did not have the numbers during the voting system. People are not educated about this election. We need to have timelines, proper timelines. We need to have funding that are allocated to IEBC from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. We must not use this as a bait for the IEBC that they lack funds to operationalize their things.